So before we end this video meeting, I have one final question. Do you have a recommendation for a movie, a book, an article, another piece of media that people may want to look at right now to help them learn, see, and understand different perspectives? Rashid, why don't you start?
Sure, Joe. There's about a 12-minute TED Talk that really inspired me, titled What It Takes to Be Racially Literate. I just think it's a great starting point and it puts a fresh perspective on the topic. So that would be one of my recommendations.
Thanks, Rashid. Karen?
I read a book last year called Between the World and Me by an author named Ta-Nehisi Coates. And the book is just a 100-page essay. It's his writing to his 4-year-old son about what it's like to grow up in America as a person of color. One of the sticking points for me, a line that from the book that really stood out to me was, white privilege doesn't mean that your life hasn't been hard. What it means is that your life hasn't been made harder because of the color of your skin. And that was such a moment for me. And so I would encourage anybody who wants to know more about that to pick up the book. It's a super easy read and really well written.
Thanks, Karen. Monica, do you have one?
Yeah, so for me, I'll keep it on Netflix, right? So watch LA 92. And the reason why I'm recommending that is, again, I was raised in LA, so it's really close to home. I grew up in the city of Watts, and the riots happened right there in, South Central LA, in that area. And it shows how a community comes together when they're trying to demand, equality and equal right. But it also shows that like a lot of the destruction that took place in the communities. It could be hard to watch as well, but it's a reality of what's taken place in the past. And we saw that with riots not so long ago. In California, my family, they own a small business and got completely burned down. They lost everything, through all of this. So these are all things that, as they happened again this year, it's kind of like a wound that you have there, and you become guarded, you become scared of what's possibly going to happen. And again, I think that by all of us being able to be more knowledgeable and educate ourselves on, the benefits of diversity and how we can respect each other, hopefully things like this won't need to happen in the future.
Thanks, Monica. I'll add one for myself. There's a show on Netflix called 13th, which is about the 13th Amendment, and specifically about the 13th Amendment outlawed slavery, but had an exception if you were convicted of a crime. And 13th shows how that exception in the 13th Amendment was one of the factors that led to racial injustice today, and specifically the mass incarceration that we see primarily of people of color. So being a history nerd, I always like to tie things back to history, and I would recommend watching 13th.